2 weeks passed. That's all I gave her. 14 days to settle into the illusion that she had somehow landed on her feet, that she was free and clear and marching forward into her new, liberated life with Dylan, the fitness-fueled boy toy, and a pocket full of false confidence. 14 days of silence from me. No texts, no calls, no late-night attempts at negotiation. I knew Lisa, silence would eat at her more than screaming ever could. And while she was out there preening for social media, posting vague little quotes about rediscovering herself and the power of new beginnings, I was pulling levers she didn't even know existed. Because revenge, real, surgical, satisfying revenge, isn't loud. It's not messy. It's a slow, methodical unraveling. And when it's done right, it leaves no room for denial. I started with something small, a simple Facebook post. Not dramatic, not accusatory, just a short, heartfelt message thanking friends and family for their support during a difficult time, confirming that Lisa and I had finalized our divorce, and expressing hope that both of us could move forward with integrity and peace. No names, no finger-pointing, just truth, plain and neutral. But it was bait, and it worked like magic. Within an hour, Lisa's sister messaged me. She wasn't subtle. I knew something was going on with her, she wrote, but I didn't want to get involved. I told her I understood, and then I asked her for a favor. Nothing big, just a little silence. I told her I had some things in motion and needed time to let them work. She agreed. And just like that, another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Then I got to work with the evidence, the real stuff. The dirty, undeniable, high-definition truth that Lisa had left behind like breadcrumbs. I took those hotel receipts, the security cam stills, the text messages where she called me a washed-up backup plan, and the timeline that proved she was lying before our anniversary, before Christmas, before my father passed. And I made copies. Clean, clear, carefully labeled. First, I sent them to Dylan's gym. Anonymous envelope. No return address, just a simple note stapled to the front. Are these the values you advertise? I didn't have to wait long. By the end of the week, Dylan had lost 2 of his highest-paying clients, both women I knew from Lisa's old wine nights, and word started to spread that the gym's motivational trainer had been engaging in some less-than-professional extracurriculars. He posted less after that. And when he did, it was all protein shakes and humble bragging, none of that smug flexing he used to do while tagging Lisa in every other post. Next came the HOA board. Lisa had just joined to connect with the community and build a presence as an independent woman, as she put it. So I sent a copy of the most embarrassing texts, the ones where she made jokes about our neighbors, called one of them a Botoxed zombie, and said she was only joining the board to get a leg up on local politics. The envelope arrived during one of their monthly meetings. I didn't see her face when she opened it, but I heard about it from 2 different sources within a day. By Friday, she was asked to step down due to private matters. The official statement said she needed to focus on personal healing. I bet it burned her mouth to say those words. And still, I said nothing, didn't post a thing, didn't answer her vague little texts asking if I was doing okay or ready to talk. Because that's the thing about a narcissist. They don't understand silence. They hear it as a challenge. They need control, attention, a narrative to manipulate. I gave her none of it, just space. And in that space, she began to unravel. The next hit was Dylan's mother. That one was deliberate, calculated. Because I'd seen photos, Lisa grinning with Dylan's mom at brunch, holding mimosas like best friends, captioned, "Love my second family." So I sent the messages where Lisa talked about how pathetic Dylan's mom was, how she tried too hard, and how she'd never seen a woman that desperate to be liked by her son's girlfriend. I sent the screenshots of Dylan mocking his own mom, agreeing with Lisa, laughing at her behind her back. That one? That one landed. They say blood is thicker than water. But even thicker is humiliation. Dylan's mom stopped liking Lisa's posts, unfollowed her within a day. Dylan himself stopped tagging Lisa in anything after that. The gym pics? Gone. The beach selfies? Suddenly cropped just enough to raise eyebrows. And I sat in my house where the mortgage was paid, the walls were silent, and the liquor cabinet was full, just watching the dominoes fall. Not laughing, not even smiling, just breathing. Because for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like I was in control again. Like I wasn't drowning under the weight of Lisa's lies. And every day that passed without a word from me made her more nervous. I could feel it. Sense it in the way her posts changed from confident to cryptic. Gone were the empowered quotes. Now it was learning to let go, and even strong women break sometimes. The performance was cracking, the mask was slipping, and I hadn't even touched the last card in my hand, the one with her name on the insurance fraud she didn't know I knew about. But I didn't need to play that card. Not yet. Because the silence was doing the heavy lifting. It was showing her exactly who she'd tried to destroy. And it was teaching her that you don't get to dismantle a man's life and walk away clean. You get to run. You get to stumble. You get to fall. And I'll be standing right here watching you disappear into the dust you thought you left me in. When Lisa finally tried to fight back, it was too late. Far too late. The damage was already done, not just in documents and reputations, but in the space where her pride used to live. I could tell she thought she still had moves left. That maybe, just maybe, if she threw a tantrum loud enough, threw around some legal jargon, played the pity card with just enough mascara-streaked desperation, she could flip the board and change the outcome of a game she didn't even know she'd already lost. It started with a text. Short. Passive-aggressive. You blindsided me. That was it. No context, no punctuation. Like she expected me to unravel the message for her like I always did in the past. To ask what she meant, to apologize before understanding the offense, to fix what she broke. But I didn't respond. I left her on red. And that silence must have eaten her alive, because the next week I got a call from her lawyer. Correction. I got a call from the legal equivalent of a gas station knockoff perfume salesman. I could smell the desperation through the phone. The guy was cheap, unprepared, probably juggling 15 other divorce cases, 3 DUIs, and a couple of parking ticket appeals. He started out cocky, said Lisa was concerned about how things had unfolded and wanted to revisit some of the division of assets. I let him talk. Let him stumble through his pathetic list of demands, asking for 50-50 splits, temporary spousal support, and a full review of the prenuptial agreement on the grounds of duress. I waited, silent. Then I said one thing. Are you done? He hesitated. Yes? Good. I'll see you at mediation. And then I hung up. Mediation wasn't in some courtroom. It was in a beige office that smelled like stale coffee and tired secrets. A woman named Carol ran it. Mediator by profession, bulldog by temperament. She was in her 60s, wore thick glasses on a chain, and looked like she'd seen enough miserable couples to fill a novel. She welcomed us both, calm as a lake before a storm. Lisa came in dressed like she was headed to a church luncheon. Soft blouse, neutral colors, hair curled just enough to say, "I'm doing fine," without saying, "I'm trying too hard." But her eyes were hungry, darting, desperate for control. She sat across from me like we were equals. We weren't. The meeting started civil. Carol laid out the basics, what we'd agreed to, what we still needed to finalize, the expectations. Lisa sat upright, nodding with performative solemnity until we reached the part about assets. That's when the real Lisa surfaced. He manipulated me, she said, her voice rising, cracking around the edges. He planned this. He knew what I was going through, and he exploited it. He took everything. Carol looked at me. Calm, professional. I slid the folder across the table. Thick, heavy, bursting with receipts. Literal and metaphorical. Here's the hotel log. Here are the texts. Here's the breakdown of every dollar I spent paying off the house. And here, I said, tapping the ironclad prenup with one slow finger, is the document she signed, witnessed, and notarized 10 years ago, when she was very much sober and very much enthusiastic about the life we were building. Lisa's lawyer reached out, eyes wide, flipping through the documents like he was seeing fire for the first time. Lisa said nothing. Not for a full 30 seconds. She just sat there, her mouth tight, her face drained of the smugness she'd walked in with. "You're a bastard," she finally whispered. I smiled, a small, tired thing, and said, "But I'm not stupid." Carol didn't even blink. She just nodded like she'd seen this play out 100 times. "Based on this," she said, adjusting her glasses, "the court will most likely side with Mr. Trent. 90% of assets, no spousal support, and a clean break." Lisa's face broke then. Not into tears. Not yet. But into that vacant stare of a person who's watching their future being rewritten without their permission. She looked at her lawyer like he might have a lifeline hiding in his briefcase. He didn't. She looked at me like maybe there was still a spark of the man who once brought her soup when she was sick, rubbed her back after long days, told her she was beautiful even when she was cold and cruel. But he was gone. That man died the moment she laughed at me in that bar. The rest of the session passed like a formality. She didn't argue. Not because she agreed, but because she realized she'd shown up to a duel with a spoon. And when it ended, when the papers were signed and the terms were locked, she gathered her things slowly, mechanically, like her body was moving but her mind was still catching up. Outside, I watched her walk to her car. She paused once, hand on the door, like she wanted to say something. Apologize. Lash out. Beg. But whatever it was, she swallowed it and got in. Drove off without a word. That was the last time I saw her in person. Within a month, Dylan was gone too. Turns out he didn't sign up for Broke Lisa. He liked the thrill, the danger, the ego stroke. But not the aftermath. Not the part where she cried at night and begged him to stay. I don't know who left who. Doesn't really matter. What matters is by Christmas I was getting emails. Long ones. "Can we talk? I didn't mean for it to end like this. I made mistakes, but you weren't perfect either." I didn't answer. Never planned to. Because it wasn't about revenge anymore, it was about clarity. And nothing is clearer than silence after a storm. Lisa's fall wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some big, explosive collapse with headlines or screaming matches or police reports like she might have feared. No, her downfall was worse than that. It was slow, humiliating, public in the way only a small town can make something feel. She didn't vanish. That would have been easier for her. She lingered. She floated around the edges of the life she used to rule, wearing sunglasses indoors and smiling too wide in grocery store aisles like nothing had changed, except everything had. Everyone knew, and not because I told them. I never once stood on a soapbox and shouted what she did. I didn't have to. People aren't stupid, especially not around here. The whispers started where they always do, at the hair salon, in the church parking lot, over iced tea at the diner, where old folks sit in the corner booth like it's a Senate hearing. She became that woman. Not the bold, brave, independent she tried to paint herself as online. Not the boss lady reclaiming her life. No, Lisa became the woman who cheated on a good man with a guy 10 years younger and dumber, lost the house, lost her reputation, and then got dumped like a bad habit once the money dried up. That's how people saw her. That's how they talked about her. And she felt it. You could see it in her eyes. She ended up moving in with a friend, one of those wine night women who always laughed too loud and wore heels to backyard BBQs. The kind of woman who loved drama as long as it wasn't hers. But that didn't last long. I heard she started bartending at some dive off the highway. Not even in town, but far enough that maybe she thought it wouldn't get back to me. It did. Everything does around here, and every time someone brought it up, I'd just nod. I never said a word against her. I never had to. People draw their own conclusions when they see the same face pouring drinks at 40-something behind a sticky bar top. A face they used to see smiling at PTA fundraisers and school board meetings. Meanwhile, I kept living. And more than that, I leveled up. There was something freeing about not dragging her shadow around anymore. I started showing up to community stuff again. Not to save face, not for damage control, but because I actually wanted to. I started talking to neighbors like a man who belonged again. People smiled at me differently. Not with pity, not with suspicion, but with respect. Real respect. Because they saw it all unfold and they saw me stay quiet, stay calm, stay solid. In a town like ours, you don't need to scream to be heard. You just stand tall while someone else drowns in the mess they made. One Saturday morning at the farmer's market, I was picking out tomatoes when I heard someone say, "Good to see you, Jacob." I turned, and there she was. Hannah. A woman I used to nod to politely at parent-teacher nights when we both had kids in the same class. Her husband passed 2 years ago. Breast cancer. Quiet woman, sharp mind. We got to talking. First it was tomatoes, then it was peaches, then it was coffee at a little stand near the courthouse. And it didn't feel like starting over. It felt like starting right. She wasn't flashy. She didn't post quotes on Instagram or drop hints about manifesting a better life. She just listened, asked questions, smiled at the right times, laughed when I actually said something funny, not just because she was performing an act. And she never, not once, asked about Lisa. She didn't need to. She knew, sure. But she let it be. And that right there, that was worth more than all the fake apologies in the world. The first time we walked through town together, hand in hand, Lisa was there, across the street. Standing outside that overpriced yoga studio she always pretended to enjoy. She saw us. I know she did. And I didn't flinch. I didn't look away. I just kept walking, kept talking to Hannah about whatever we were already saying. Peach preserves or garden soil or something beautifully ordinary. Lisa stood there, sunglasses on, arms folded like she was made of glass and shame. But I didn't break stride, didn't acknowledge her, because ghosts don't deserve nods. She didn't call that day. But she did a week later. Voicemail. Her voice softer than I remembered. No anger this time, no snide remarks. Just a quiet, "Hey, I was thinking maybe we could talk sometime. Not about us, just, I don't know." Life. I didn't respond, because I knew what it was. That wasn't a woman seeking closure. That was a woman realizing her spotlight had gone out. That the man she left behind was shining brighter than ever. That maybe the thing she walked away from wasn't broken. Maybe she was. She tried again 2 weeks later. Another message. This time there were tears in her voice. "I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I really, really am. I made mistakes. Big ones. And I hope one day you can forgive me." I didn't delete it. I just left it there. Let it sit like an old receipt at the bottom of a junk drawer. Because forgiveness isn't always about words. Sometimes it's about moving on so thoroughly that the past can't even find you anymore. Now when I walk into the hardware store or grab coffee at that little place on Main, people don't ask how I'm doing. They already know. They can see it. I'm not just surviving. I'm thriving. And not in some Instagram reel, living my best life kind of way. I'm waking up without dread in my chest. I'm falling asleep beside someone who values honesty over appearance. I'm building again. Not just homes, but a life worth waking up to. Lisa once told me she never wanted to be one of those women who peaked in high school, who spent the rest of their lives chasing moments that already passed them by. Funny thing is, that's exactly who she became. And the man she left behind? The one she thought she could discard and forget? I'm the man she'll remember for the rest of her life. Not because she loved me, but because I got up when she thought she'd buried me. It's been years now. I don't mark the date on the calendar, don't celebrate the anniversary of my divorce like some sad milestone. But I know when it's close. I feel it in my bones. Not in a bitter way, not anymore. But in the same way an old scar itches before a storm rolls in. A quiet reminder of pain endured, of lessons paid for in blood and dignity. And when I look back on everything, on Lisa, on the smirk in that bar, on the long silence between us before the truth finally came out, I don't see pain anymore. Not in the way I used to. I see clarity. I see the man I used to be, and the man I had to become to survive her. There's this thing people like to say when you go through something like this. Time heals all wounds. And sure, time does something. It dulls the edges. It takes that searing heat in your chest and turns it into something colder, quieter. But time doesn't heal. You heal. With every decision you make to walk forward instead of looking back. With every morning you choose not to answer the phone when it buzzes with her name. With every moment you stop trying to understand why someone would destroy you, and instead, focus on building something that can't be taken away. Because that's what I've done. I built something. A life that doesn't depend on her moods, her lies, her games. A life where I know every brick, every nail, every inch of it was put there by me, not handed to me, not borrowed, not manipulated into existence, but built the hard way. Brick by brick. Day by day. Alone, at first. And then, eventually, with someone who didn't ask for the spotlight, but stood beside me like a lighthouse in the fog. Hannah and we're good. Better than good, really. She doesn't fill the silence with fluff or flattery. She doesn't need to be seen to feel valued. And maybe that's why it works. There's no pretense, no masks, no performance. When we sit on the porch in the evenings drinking coffee or just watching the sun drag itself down behind the trees, I don't feel like I have to be anything other than what I am. And for a man who spent 18 years walking on eggshells in his own home, that kind of peace is priceless. Sometimes I get messages from Lisa. Still. Not often. A few a year. Always the same tone. Soft, nostalgic, laced with just enough regret to sound like growth, but still steeped in the same self-centeredness that poisoned everything she touched. I've been thinking about you, she'll write. Or, I saw this picture and remembered how you used to laugh at that dumb movie. Once, she said, do you think things could have been different? And I just sat there staring at the screen, wondering how someone could still ask that after everything. As if different was a possibility we'd somehow overlooked. No, Lisa. Things were exactly what they had to be. Because the truth is, she didn't just leave me. She freed me. She burned our life down thinking she'd rise from the ashes, a phoenix in heels and a new man on her arm. But I was the fire. I was the one who got up from the wreckage, pulled the nails out of my hands, wiped the soot off my face, and rebuilt without her. And when people ask me now, because they still do, how did you get through it? How did you survive that kind of betrayal? I just tell them the truth. I stopped thinking of myself as a victim, and I started acting like a man with nothing to lose. That's when everything changed. When I realized the worst thing that ever happened to me was also the best, because it showed me who I never wanted to be again. It taught me to listen to the quiet red flags, the ones you dismiss, because love makes excuses for behavior that would make strangers run. It reminded me that respect isn't something you should have to earn every day inside your own marriage. It's the damn floor, not the ceiling. So no, I don't respond to her. I don't wish her well. I don't wish her anything. Because she's not part of my story anymore. Not really. She's the prologue. A cautionary tale. A name I used to whisper in my sleep, now just a shadow fading behind me. The best revenge? It wasn't the court victory. It wasn't the way her life unraveled. It wasn't even watching her try to crawl back after burning every bridge she thought she could rebuild. The best revenge was this life. Quiet, honest, strong. A home that doesn't shake when someone raises their voice. A partner who doesn't make me feel like I'm always one mistake away from being discarded. A sense of self that isn't tangled up in someone else's drama, deceit, or ego. Lisa underestimated me. She thought she was walking away from a doormat. She didn't realize she was poking a lion. And now, every time she lies awake at night staring at the ceiling in some half-empty apartment, wondering where it all went wrong, maybe she thinks about the man she left. And maybe, just maybe, she understands. I wasn't the mistake. I was the warning. And she ignored it. So she burned. And I thrived. And that, my friends, is the end of that story. Watch more interesting stories on my channel.